welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review, I'm taking a look at the final B&M release for 2025, which is the History of the Daleks set number 20, Remembrance of the Daleks, Imperial Battle Squad, featuring a special weapons Dalek and a standard Imperial Dalek. So before we begin, I just would like to thank Ben Lett, aka The Host Productions, and Jack, aka Doctor Who Figures on Twitter, who very kindly, each of them got me one of these Dalek sets. I wanted one for myself, one for my nephew, so I was able to pick and choose which version to go for, because the weathering on the special weapons Daleks, they're not that consistent between all of the releases, and we'll look into that as the review goes on. So a huge thank you to the pair of them, and go and check out their respective channels and Twitters and things. They were a massive help for me. So let's jump in and take a look at the latest release. So the figures come packaged in the usual window box that we see for the History of the Daleks set, featuring the style guide that we've become familiar with this current era of Doctor Who. Of course, we have the gold limited edition foil sticker on the bottom, and we have the little box out clarifying that this is the Imperial Battle Squad set, as opposed to the Renegade Daleks that came out the previous year. And then on the back of the box, we have a synopsis about Remembrance of the Daleks, the fan favourite Dalek story, and then there's some behind-the-scenes info about the props themselves. So out of the box, the Daleks look fantastic. We have a special weapons Dalek, which is the first time that this has been released since the sound effects version in 2013, so quite a while. And then we have our Imperial Dalek, which was last seen back in 2020, so not that long ago. And that came out with Ace in the Coal Hill School set. And both figures have had updates since their previous releases, and we'll go into that now. But let's start off with the special weapons Dalek. So first things first, looks fantastic. It's a great sculpt. Paint app-wise, they've done a lovely job with this one. There's always a lot of weathering with this Dalek because it's a very grungy, battle-heavy Dalek. So it looks fantastic. All of the rivets and bolts have all been picked out there, as you can see, with the wash over the top. And it just looks great. It looks great over the cream portions. The gold section is now a much darker gold, especially compared to its most recent release, which I said was the sound effects Dalek. So that's the sound effects Dalek here on the left, and we've got the new one on the right. So you can see that this gold on the new one is a lot more vibrant, which I think is a lot better. And then, of course, we can see that the gun here, molded in black plastic, has been picked off with a bit of a wash over the top as well, bit of metallic wash there, just to bring out some of those details. Not quite as heavy as the sound effects version, but still looks good. And then moving down beneath the turret, you can see where the turret moves, the sort of whole top portion of the Dalek moves. You can see that wash carries on under there, so that's a nice bit of consistency. And then as we go further down to the skirt, we've got the weathering on the hemispheres. Now, this has always been the major issue with the special weapons Daleks. I think if you go back way back to my first review of the special weapons Dalek in 2010, I was not very impressed with the weathering between the hemispheres because it just looked like circle blobs in between, and I stand by that. It's not great. The next version, the sound effects version, were much heavier, and it was almost like big stripes down. I guess kind of better, but still not really what we see on screen. And then we have this version, which is kind of like the sound effects version, but it's not just straight lines. But this is what I mean with regards to the consistency between the weathering across the sets. So if we look at this one, which is the one that I kept for myself, you have like little strips of it coming down from the top. Some of the hemispheres have big long streaks, some of them don't have much at all, and that's why I opted for this one, because looking at pictures of the actual Dalek prop, you know, it is just sort of like leaky bits coming off of the hemispheres. It's just like patchy bits. It's not like huge, great big stripes with a paintbrush. The other set that I was sent, which I've left for my nephew, the front hemispheres, they were more like straight lines all the way down. So I thought, well, the sound effects one was like that. So I opted to go for one that was a bit less heavy, just so it would look different on the shelf, to be honest. And I'm really pleased with it. I think this is the best that those streaks have been in terms of the weathering compared to all the releases. So it's definitely an upgrade. I still think it's quite heavy. I still think that dark paint could be maybe slightly thinner. On the whole, looking at it like this, with a more patchy weathering, I think they've done a nice job with it. So overall, really, really good. And then towards the bottom, along the fender, they've added more wash and scuffs there, just again to really hit home that this is a battle-ready, battle-damaged Dalek. So yeah, Special Weapons Dalek looks amazing. And then of course, in terms of articulation, very straightforward. He just has the gun that goes up and down, pivoting up and down. And then of course, the top section rotates 360 degrees. And of course, he's got the 3 usual wheels of a normal Dalek. It does seem like they've just used the sound effects version as the mold for this one, because you can see that little hemisphere, which would have been the sound effects button on the previous version of the toy, is still in place. If you missed out on the Special Weapons Dalek, then this is definitely a set that you're going to want to get, because they've done a really good job with it. It's always been good, but this time I think they've just perfected it a little bit more. I imagine that this is probably the last time we'll see this Special Weapons Dalek get a release, seeing as it has been 3 times now. But saying that, let's move over to the Imperial Dalek, which is probably on its 4th release since it first came out in 2010. In fact, it had 2 releases in 2010 with different eye stalks. So this version is an upgrade compared to the 2020 version. I mean, it depends on who you ask, because certain people are going to complain about certain things, and it's all valid, but we'll go through it. So it is exactly the same as the 2020 version in basically every aspect. A couple of things have been fixed, and then a couple of things have gone backwards. As always, you know, they've done a lovely job with like the dome lights and things. I love those disc dome lights that these Daleks have. They're great. But the first fix is the eye stalk, the color of the eye stalk. So if you can see here with the iris has been painted silver. On the previous release, it was black. And then on the previous releases before that, it was blue. This is the first time that it has been painted the actual screen accurate silver. Already, that's a win. Fantastic. The issue that people have with this, though, is that the eye stalk that they've used on this version is not the right eye stalk. It's actually the eye stalk from the Supreme Dalek from the previous set. So I imagine that there was probably some sort of a cock-up in the factory, and Remembrance of the Daleks set, sure, we've done loads of those. It's that one, right? They probably just picked up the wrong eye stalk and then it got molded. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Is it a huge blow? Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, this Imperial Dalek, as lovely as it is, I mean, they always look great. The cream and the gold looks fantastic. It's a lovely colour scheme. At the end of the day, this Dalek toy, no matter how many times you tweak the eye stalk, tweak the plunger, tweak the gun, is never going to be 100% accurate to what we see on screen. The whole mould of the skirt and everything is completely off compared to the actual on-screen versions, which were completely new props. It wasn't based on the original Shawcraft props that were built in the 60s. So the skirt is very, very different. So for what it is a good close approximation of an Imperial Dalek. So I, for one, can't really get bogged down with like, oh, well, the eye stalk's the wrong sculpt, because technically none of it's right. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm really, really pleased that we finally got the actual silver used on the iris. That's great. And it still looks lovely. Another thing that's a good update compared to the 2020 Coal Hill School set release is that we've gone back to the shoulder slats without the mesh in between. There was some weird reuse. I can't really remember what the story was behind that they couldn't use the meshless one, or the meshless one had gone missing, or there was something that had gone weird with the tooling. And so it had to have the mesh that the normal Daleks had. This time round, clearly that's been sorted, and so we have no mesh in between. So again, that makes it feel a little bit more accurate to the props as we see them on screen. And then everything else in terms of like the gun, it's the thinner gun that we see on the previous version, and it's the very bespoke plunger that we see with these Daleks with the bits cut out. Otherwise, it is exactly the same as the previous release. But like I said, you know, it's a lovely Dalek. It's always nice to have a few of these Imperial Daleks. Again, I think this is probably going to be the last time we see this figure now. I can't imagine them doing any more versions of this. Who knows, maybe someday we'll get a full Imperial Dalek sculpt, but I won't hold my breath. And then, of course, in terms of articulation, you've got the pivoting eye stalk, the 360-degree turn at the head, ball-jointed gun stick and plunger, and then, much like the Special Weapons Dalek, he's got the same base, so it's the 3 wheels, one at the front, 2 at the back. So there we have it, guys. That is the final B&M release for 2025. Final thoughts on this one. I think if you haven't got the Special Weapons Dalek, this is probably your best opportunity of getting hold of it. If you've got these Daleks in the past, you know, maybe you don't necessarily feel the need to get them again. I've got comparison pictures here between the most recent releases of each, so up to you to decide whether or not you feel like dipping in for another go. But I'm pleased with them. I think the new colouring on the Special Weapons Dalek really does just give it an extra bit of oomph. And like I said, I'm really pleased to see that silver finally on the Imperial Dalek itself. So yeah, overall, a lovely little set. Good for those who missed out. And yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you all for my next review, which will probably be the as of yet unannounced online exclusive that everybody knows what it is, but I'm a man of my word, I'll never tell. So I'll see you all in time for that one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye!